said she would teach this class. Now, let me just tell you why that is so great. She is our field superintendent for all things planting. She'll have truckloads of plants going out to screen a neighbor, to block the wind, to keep the dust, to keep the headlights from coming into your living room or whatever. She is the go-to. She's also one of our field consultants. So she knows soils. She knows which plants grow the fastest, the best, the strong, bestest. That's not even a word. The strongest, fills in better. She knows spacing. She knows layering, how to get faster growing with evergreens kind of stuff. So she is I couldn't think of anyone better to teach this particular class. And if you've got some ideas or thoughts for your own yard, take a picture, bring it in, and let her see it. She could be there to tell you exactly how many plants you need or how to screen that or which companion plants would be best for that. She's super good, and she's a good teacher. So I always learn something too. You always learn something from fellow gardeners. I consider her a fellow gardener. Because you're here for privacy. Rooftops are going up everywhere. That lot that has been open for years, it will be built on very shortly. The boom is on. Okay, it's like the 90s, 2000s again. Has that kind of feel. Not quite, a little bit different feel, but it has we're just seeing a lot of customers coming in where I want privacy. My neighbors are looking down into my patio while I'm eating dinner or sipping tea, watching the sunset. I want to have a secret garden kind of feel. Maximize the stuff you already have so it stays healthy. With that, let's give it up for Ella, and she's our teacher for today.
Hey guys, how you doing? Good. I'm Ella, and like you said, we're talking about screening today. Screening against neighbors, wind, dust, unsightly sights, you name it. Screening has actually become one of our very top requests here at the Garden Center. Every single day we have people coming in saying, my neighbor has this ugly shed. I don't want to look at it. Can I put a tree in front of that? Or my neighbors are looking down on me because we are in the mountains. We're in a hilly area. Nothing's flat. Everybody has a neighbor that can look straight down into the yard, into the patio, into the hot tub, into the windows, you name it. So people there's so many reasons. We're in a mountain, but at the same time there's a lot of fields surrounding Prescott. So we serve what we call the Tri-City area, which actually includes not only Prescott Valley and Chino Valley, but also Williamson Valley and Dewey, Humboldt, even further than that. And we have a lot of open fields, heavy wind, and the best way to cut down on that definitely is trees. So screening for all kinds of reasons. Just about everybody needs a screen for something. So today we're going to talk about how to choose your screen. And it's going to depend a little bit on what you're blocking. If you're just blocking, say, the neighbor's shed, probably one or two trees is going to do it. If you're, say, you've got acreage out in Chino Valley or Williamson Valley, you could be putting in a very long row of trees to, stop the wind, privacy, and so on. So it may depend a little bit. Prescott Valley, huge need for privacy screening sometimes because, again, we're going through that building boom right now, and a lot of it is in Prescott Valley. So everyone's saying, oh wow, I've got all these neighbors popping up around me now, so I'm kind of losing my view, and all I see is rooftops. Because if you're, again, we're in a hilly area, so there's someone looking down on you, and then you look at the other side and you see a rooftop. Just this huge expanse of shingles. I get this all the time. Oh my goodness, I just got to stop looking at this roof. Please tell me what to use to block this. So even in a relatively normal sized yard, you can end up putting in a lot of trees. So one of the first things I like to tell people is if you're going to be putting in screening, you might want to think about your water needs. We're in the desert. This is not Oregon. This is not Washington, where water is always plentiful. We're in the desert, so We have to think about our water. If you're going to be putting in that many trees, that is really going to add to your water bill. It's going to tax your well. Many of us are on wells here. It's really going to tax your well more than you realize. We were actually planting out at a person's house in Williamson Valley, and we were watering the tree after we planted, and all of a sudden the water ran dry. Ran her well dry. So water is definitely a big thing you want to look at. How much water is this shrub, this tree going to take this year, next year, 5 years from now? What's it going to be needing? Can I afford to put in 10 of those, 20 of those? In some cases, maybe more. How much can my well actually provide, especially with all the people moving in? Even into more remote areas like Williamson Valley. I mean, that's almost turning into a city out there. Have you been out there? It is really getting built up. Areas like the north end of Prescott Valley, Chino Valley, those areas are really getting a lot of building. And so those of you that have had wells, that have always provided more than enough, you're going to notice your level is starting to go down a little bit. Some of you have already told me, I can tell the level's already going down, because more people are tapping into it. So we have to think about water because of where we live. So, we want to say, okay, I've got 2 plants that I like. Which one's going to be better on water when I put in 10 of them, or even 5 of them? Because I also still have the rest of my landscape that I also want to plant, just to make the place look nice. And it all starts adding up very quickly. We want to think about those things. And besides, in the cases of you where you have maybe a little bit of acreage, trying to send a line or an irrigation line way out there can be a little bit difficult sometimes. Many of you tell me, I'm going to be going out there with a hose or a water tank or something because it's too hard to get the irrigation out there. So these are things to think about. So, for example, you may have, let's say you have a neighbor that you want to block out, or maybe it's the rooftop. You don't need anything really, really high. You just need something, just over the head so that it blocks the view straight on. You might decide you just want a shrub. This one right here is silverberry. You probably noticed that it's got a similar color to a very popular plant known as euonymus. Very, very popular because of that golden color. The euonymus typically wants about a once-a-week watering. The silverberry can take times of neglect, go a little bit longer in between the watering. There's some actually right across the street. When we first put those in, something happened with the irrigation out there. It wasn't running for a while. And there was actually a number of things that were planted out there, had some that irrigation issue, and we started watching the plants just kind of dying off because they were new, they weren't established. This was the survivor. If you look over there now, this is what you're going to see. This was the survivor. That's how good it does with periods of neglect or going longer in between waterings. So if you're wanting that golden look, this can be your alternative to the usual euonymus or other golden plants. So you have those options. Of course, the next thing you want to look at is fast growing. You want privacy or screening of some kind now, if possible. So you want to have, you don't want to be waiting 5-10 years. You don't know if you'll be living in a house 5-10 years from now. You kind of want something right now, right? So you want to think about how fast is this plant going to grow. The silverberry happens to be very fast. Over here I've got cotoneaster and nandina. Both of them very, very fast. For trees, I've got a selection over here. We've got Austrian pine, for example. Something you got to know about evergreens, they tend to be very slow growing. Evergreen trees tend to be very, very slow growing. You might get, say, 6 to 8 inches a year. It's a little slow when you're needing privacy screening now, right? So here's an exception to the rule. This is Austrian pine. Puts on more like 18 inches a year, 4.5. That's pretty good for an evergreen. So that's a much better alternative if you're looking for a fast-growing tree. How tall you need your screening to be is going to depend on what it is you're trying to screen. So for example, if If you're wanting to screen the house that's above you, it may not take too much. If the house is kind of set back, you just need a little bit of something so that when they're out in the yard, they can't look straight down on you. On the other hand, if you're putting the screen down here on your level, not the upper part of your property, then you're going to want something much taller. So it just depends on what it is you're trying to screen. Again, if you're just trying to screen out that rooftop from the neighbor that's lower to you, 6 feet may be all it takes. A smaller plant does take less water, so it does a lot of good. Yes.
That was called a silverberry.
This one's called a silverberry.
And does it lose its leaves in the winter?
That is evergreen. And I'm going to talk about that.
Okay, good.
Keeps the leaves, yeah, and I'm actually going to talk about that in a minute. Deciduous versus evergreen. So depending on what height you need, what I often recommend to everyone when you're trying to screen something, and especially if you want something that's not too tall, is to go out, have a person, maybe your spouse or your neighbor or someone, go out, stand in the yard, and see how much above their head you're seeing, and decide, do I need to block that? You can have them go out with a rod or a ruler of some kind, figure out kind of how much you need. I do have people who come in and say, I want to block this, but I don't want to block out everything. I do want to just kind of block out the fence or the rooftop a little bit. So if that's the case, you want to kind of get an idea of how much it's actually going to take to really block that out. You'll look at the width. A tree, of course, is going to be much, much wider than a bush. But how long is it going to take to fill in? So with privacy screening, we often look at, okay, we need this to fill in quick. So we kind of tend to want to plant them a little closer together, and you can do that to some extent. I did see someone put them in they were alternating maples and Leland cypress, about that far apart, and now they're about 20 feet tall. They're smothering each other. So that's something, they may have to remove some of those trees to give them a little bit of room. They do have, trees get along pretty well, especially when they're the same type. You can kind of form a hedge with them. They can get along pretty well. They figure out how to, okay, I can grow this far and you can grow this far, and okay, now we're good. And they know how to do that. But there is a point where that's just too big a tree for too small a space when you're planting them this close together. So you either want to plan on cutting a few things down in the future, or kind of think, okay, how much space does this plant need? How close can I really put it together? In some cases, someone says, I want to maximize how much coverage I can get out of each plant. So we're going to go with something wide. For example, maybe we're using the ostrich pine, which is going to get, maybe a 15-foot wide. Others might say, you know what, I want to be able to shove them in right now. We had this actually just about a week or two ago. She says, I want the screening now. And so what she did was she went with, it was a skyrocket juniper. Well, they get 2-3 feet wide. So she could plant them really close to each other. Their width was already close to where they were going to be in the future. So she could plant them really close to each other and not have to worry about them smothering each other, because they were already about a foot wide already, maybe a little over. So when those get to their full width, they're going to be right where they want to be. So that, again, is a personal choice how you want to do that. Again, when you look at the tag, it'll say something like, oh, this grows around 15 foot wide. You can shave a little bit off of that and put them a little closer. But when you get into, I want this, and then you have to start thinking about how that's going to be affected in the future. So evergreens are the most common request for privacy screening. You can use deciduous trees. This depends on what you're going to be, how much are you in your yard in the winter. That's really what it comes down to. So this, for example, is a maple. There are benefits to putting a deciduous tree into the yard for screening. They are faster growing. They're beautiful. They have color. They have fall colors. Some of them have flowers in the springtime. They have a lot of benefits. Maybe it's just a tree that you really like to have, but you're not sure that it would make good screening. So you have to think, okay, am I going to be out in the yard much in the winter? Every now and then someone says, you know what, I'm not. It's cold. I'm inside the house. I don't go outside. So I'm not going to see that rooftop or down into my neighbor's yard. I don't want to see down into their hot tub, but I'm not out there to see that in the winter time. So it's okay if the tree loses its leaves. And this way you get a faster growing tree. You're able to choose for more variety when you're planting, when you're considering deciduous trees and not just evergreens. So it is something some of you can consider if you want to look at deciduous trees. So for example, this maple can put on maybe 3 feet a year. That's a lot more than an evergreen. For an evergreen, let's say a deodar cedar, which we have right there on the end, it maxes out at about 2 feet a year. That's really great for an evergreen. But a deciduous tree, most deciduous trees will do at least that much per year. So you see what a difference it can make by putting in something faster growing. So you have to decide, do I need the screening through the winter? And yes, the branches will kind of break up the seam a little bit, but not as much as an evergreen would do. So we have, this is actually a new variety. So you can get a little color with evergreens. This one is a golden Arizona cypress. Arizona cypress is normally a kind of a bluish green, or maybe even greenish blue. They're sometimes pretty blue. It's a native tree that grows around here, and normally we see that blue-green color. This one is a different variety. Actually, is golden. Doesn't get quite as tall as the normal Arizona cypress. So this is one of the faster-growing evergreens. Again, it is something that, okay, you want something other than green. I get this a lot. So many people every day come in, I want something other than green. I need something different. I need some color. You do get a few choices with evergreens. You won't see purples. I get that sometimes. It's an evergreen that gets purple. Well, the tree's not really so much. But you can get some goldens. There's a golden Arizona cypress. There's the golden deodar cedar. So you do have some options. And then again, if you don't need something real tall, you can go with evergreen shrubs. As you were pointing out earlier, not everything that is evergreen has needles, like a pine or maybe an Arizona cypress or juniper. There are things that have evergreen leaves. Even though this is leafy, this is going to keep its leaves all the way through winter. So if you're wanting something evergreen, there are shrubs that have evergreen leaves rather than needles. So this right here is the silverberry. We also have Photinia, very popular. That's the one you see that has the red leaves all over it. When the leaves first come out, they're red, and they stay red for a while before turning green.
What is that?
Very, very popular. It's called Photinia. P-H-O.
Do you have any?
We're running a little low right now. I think there's only a couple in stock.
I was just going to ask you
Yeah.
about that.
It's something we typically have, but
Yeah.
because it's very, very popular.
Well, I like that it is in hedges. I'm
Yes.
looking for a hedge.
Yeah, if you want something you can hedge,
Yeah.
then the Photinia works very well for that. The constant trimming actually kind of helps to encourage
Right.
new growth,
It's so pretty.
and really helps to bring out that redness of the Photinia, because that's what everyone wants it for.
I hedged that one right there,
Yeah, that's what I want.
and the deer don't eat it.
Yeah.
And it takes half the water and it doesn't get mildew.
And how tall does it get?
This one, the silverberry is about 6 foot. The Photinia eventually can get to 10 if you let it.
Silverberry is deer resistant?
Yes, the silverberry is deer resistant, so is in most cases the Photinia is. Lately the deer have been eating things that they don't normally eat, and they've been nibbling at new Photinia. They're leaving the old ones alone, the ones that are big and established already, they leave those alone, but when they come across one that's really young, you may have to give it a little protection during springtime, because then the animals are really hungry. They've got all winter with very little to eat, and now they're just going into desperate mode. And past few years, they've been worse than normal. So they have attacked some of the Photinia once in a while. It's not something they like, but when everything else is gone, if they have to, they'll go for a very young Photinia. So it might need a little temporary protection if you've got a lot of deer in your area. If you've been losing plants that you know that they don't like, then you know that you are one of those candidates for putting a cage or the plant for the first, maybe year or whatever. So we are having that issue. So far, I haven't heard any complaints about silverberry being eaten. You're in a deer area.
Yeah, deer or elk.
Yeah.
Neither one eat
Yeah.
that. Nothing eats that. Same with the cotoneaster, same with the nandina.
Yeah.
They don't even
definitely.
touch it.
I have a lot of javelina in my area, and I've got nandina. This right here, you'll definitely want to water it at first to get it big and healthy and well established. The ones, there's a whole bunch of big ones growing around where I live. No one cares for them. No water, they live off of rain. What nature gives them, that's what they get. We've been in drought. They still look pretty good. They get big and bushy and gorgeous, and the animals leave them alone. I have not heard a single complaint about anybody in any neighborhood having this eaten. Yes.
Flower.
Does it flower? It gets a cluster of small white flowers in the spring, and then they turn to red berries later in the summer. So it gets that ornamental berry as well. So this is one of my favorites, nandina, because it gets a lot of color in the leaves. The new growth comes out in hues of red, pink, purple, and then when winter comes, all the foliage just starts turning all these colors. Gorgeous, gorgeous plant. It truly is. And it has a beautiful natural look. So if you're someone who doesn't want the hedged, boxed, manicured look, you will love this plant. And it comes in different sizes. There's different varieties. This one right here is the Emerald Sea, which I think is a 6-foot variety. There's also Gulfstream, which is more like 3.5 foot. There's Sienna Sunrise, which is again around 3 feet. Brilliant reds. The Gulfstream is more pastel colors. That one's actually my favorite because I like pinks and purples. But if you like bold reds, you want to go for Sienna Sunrise. Very brilliant looking. And then there's even shorter varieties like the Harbor Dwarf, which is more like a ground cover. So there's different varieties of this one.
So Ella, is 6 foot the maximum pretty much on that?
Pretty much, if that's the variety that it is. So
Are the berries
again, most of these have a tag on it, and you can look at it because again, there's so many different nandina. You're thinking, oh, which one's for me? Just check the tag, and it says average size, and this one right here says 4 to 5 feet tall, 3 foot wide. So then you know. So if you want taller, if you want privacy screening, obviously I'd go for something like the Emerald Sea or the Domestica, the Purple Plum. All of those get around, good 6 foot.
It fills in too, doesn't it? Fill in?
Yes, it does fill
But
in.
it doesn't get real wide.
Sorry. No, it's the ones I've got around my place are probably 4 foot wide. So, and they've been there for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Hey Ella, someone's asking online, what's the name of that again?
This is Nandina.
Do you
There you
sell
go.
that and also the?
Yeah, and it's also called Heavenly Bamboo.
Yeah, that's what I know.
That's the common name for it, Heavenly Bamboo. No, it's not a bamboo. It's not a true bamboo, but some bamboos have leaves that look kind of like this, and so they know it's Heavenly Bamboo. So if you look that up, you should be able to find it. And Nandina, Nandina. Photinia does start with a PH.
Okay.
Photinia.
Is that also thought of as the burning bush?
No.
No.
She was asking, is that the burning bush? The burning bush is actually a different plant. It's type of euonymus, but I won't get too technical and bore everyone. It does lose leaves. It turns glorious red fall color and then drops its leaves. I think that one does get around 5-6 foot tall. So again, if you're only needing a short hedge to kind of block something, just a short view, burning bush would work. Just keep in mind it'll lose leaves. It'll kind of break up the scene a little bit because it'll have a lot of dead scratching structure, but it will lose the leaves. So again, if you're not going to be out in the yard that much during the winter, it's not going to matter anyway.
silverberry question again,
Sure.
sorry, because that's probably what we're gonna get. Is it poisonous to dogs or anything?
Not that I'm aware of.
What you're
the
legally
silverberry.
allowed to say is, check with your
With the vet,
veterinarian.
yeah.
Oh.
Okay, I will.
And it is good to check with your vet if you have dogs that are prone to eating things that they wouldn't normally eat, and especially if your dog has a particular allergy that maybe this plant wouldn't affect other dogs, it could affect yours.
I can say I've got Nandina and Vincent, the black lab, roaming around. He's a chow hound. He'll try anything. He seems to leave it alone. So here, you heard his name. There you go.
There went the cup.
With my dog.
Yeah. Evergreens in general, the Nandina, again, evergreen, silverberry evergreen, this cotoneaster, which also gets ornamental red berries.
I want to know what
Is that deciduous or?
Evergreen.
It is an evergreen.
Evergreens in general don't taste that good. They really don't. So most animals can smell something and tell, that doesn't smell appetizing. Every now and then you'll have a puppy, and they're kind of like babies. They put everything in their mouths, So, if you have a puppy, you might want to kind of watch. But in general, things are pretty, aren't so toxic that they can get sick from eating a small amount, just from trying it out. But again, sometimes it's good just to check with your vet and be safe.
What is that called? I'm sorry.
This one is the one, when you look at how it's spelled, it looks like cotton Easter. That's
okay.
the way that it's spelled, but it's actually pronounced cotoneaster. But if you write down cotton Easter, you'll remember it.
Okay.
With only one T.
And now, is it, how high would that grow?
This one will grow usually around 6 foot. I've seen them get slightly taller, but it takes a long time. They're pretty fast growing though.
It keeps its leaves in the
It keeps its leaves all the way through winter. And you actually see a little bit of fall color sometimes if the conditions are right, but it doesn't mean it's going to lose the leaves. They'll just kind of turn like a purplish, almost red color sometimes.
Can you make it into like a hedge?
Can you make it into a hedge? Absolutely. Again, this one's a good one for people who either like hedging or if they like a natural look. It just has a beautiful sort of arching effect. So if everyone's a little different. If you want it more natural, this is a really pretty one to go with. If you want to hedge it, you absolutely can. It kind of helps it kind of bush out and get real dense a little quicker. So it's a great plant. Gets great big clusters of red berries on it. So you'll be seeing those pretty soon on it. Really pretty
Doesn't
plant.
have needles, it's like
No needles like pyracantha. Pyracantha is a great one to consider if you're going to be, if you're not afraid of thorns, or if you're going to be in an area that, if you're putting it in an area where thorns aren't going to be a big deal. Pyracantha is a great one to consider. That's the one that is covered in orange berries right now. It's about 8 foot tall.
Red ones are less hardy.
Fantastic plant because it's fast growing, it's very thick. Definitely a good height for screening, and great on water. I mean, so many times I've seen them neglected, and they do great. Yes.
We have very low walls, 3 feet plus. Would pyracantha be a good thing to try to keep coyotes up?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Because they can get pretty.
Could you repeat the question too, just so the folks online?
So the pyracantha, she was asking if you wanted to make a screen that could keep coyotes out. Pyracantha would be a good one to go with. The thorns won't stop them, but just the fact that it's so thick, don't trim off any lower branches. Otherwise, they can get under. Coyotes aren't real big. They can squeeze under a lot of things. So you definitely want to let it get real thick. You'll find you end up with a lot of quail in there. They love pyracantha.
And other birds.
Yes, and other birds too. They do. They love pyracantha. So let it be thick at the bottom so they can't crawl underneath. The cotoneaster and the nandina, again, great on water. So these are great if you're looking for, say, around head high, just over your head, shrubs that are going to block the view going this way. Those are going to do a great job. Be fast growing, so silverberry, fast growing for all three of these. Good on water. Not going to be too much of a burden on either your bill or on our resources. We all want to be conservative.
I have another question.
Yes.
We're going to be taking out our rose bushes because they look horrible.
Okay.
And the hummingbirds love the rose bushes. Do any of these hummingbirds like any of these bushes? Because I'm sure I'm going to hate to see
So she would like something that's great for hummingbirds. A lot of these plants, they do flower in the springtime with little tiny white flowers. This is the one I'm reading. Thank you. This one is a hummingbird favorite. This one here is honeysuckle. Now this would need a trellis. If you're putting it along the wall, you can use a flat trellis. If you're just trying to do a few to block out a shed, you can even do a three-dimensional trellis. These vines grow fast. That's a wonderful thing about vines, is they just grow incredibly fast. If you've got, say, a chain link fence you want to cover over, you're tired of looking at that, that's another great opportunity to use a vine. It just doesn't get faster growing than a vine.
What happens in the winter?
In the wintertime, most vines will lose their leaves. This is the exception. There are several types of honeysuckle. Only one is evergreen, and it's Hall's. Hall. Hall's honeysuckle. This is the evergreen honeysuckle. Not many vines are going to be evergreen like this. So this will actually keep its leaves. You'll see them kind of tint with purple a little bit, and they're kind of going to sleep, but they're still there. And they just stay on and look beautiful, and then springtime comes and this thing is just covered in flowers and just blooms all the way through the summer. Wonderful.
What about deer with the honeysuckle?
The deer are pretty good about leaving the honeysuckle alone, actually. In fact, I'd say all the vines are really good about being left alone by the deer. If I have yet to hear about any deer or animals nibbling at people's vines, but if it did happen, honestly, it would grow back so fast you probably wouldn't notice.
Yeah, that's true.
They're so fast, especially after they're established, they explode.
Ella, the question online is, how wide can you make that vine grow and height? So
How wide can you let this vine grow? In most cases, when you put in a vine, you end up with at least 10 feet very easily after some time, especially if you're helping it go sideways when it wants to go up. It can actually go up to 20 feet very easily, very quickly. I do recommend with any of these starting with a larger root ball. This even goes for the vines. If you start with a small, let's say 1 gallon, it's going to take a while. The difference between a 1 gallon and a 5, here's a 1 gallon. This is 1 gallon. The difference between this and this is about 3-4 years. Okay, wow. This is one season of growth. So a year or less in a 1 gallon. A 5 gallon has between 3 and 5 years of growth on it. So when something is young like this, now this is just a flower, but imagine this was a tree or a vine. Something this small is going to go through a period where it's just kind of establishing itself and getting to a point where it can really start growing, but it's not really going to take off much until it gets to about year 3. It's got to be in your yard for around 3 years. It'll just be growing slowly, and then all of a sudden you'll see this explosion of growth. If you go with a 5 gallon, let's say that we're doing a vine, it explodes immediately and just puts on 10-20 feet in a single season. We've seen it all the time. It's amazing what a difference it makes going with that larger root ball. If you're doing, say, a tree, the larger the better. Because, again, this is about 3 to 5 years of growth on a 5 gallon, but if you're looking at a tree that's, say, a 20 gallon, you're actually looking at between, say, 17 and 20 years, I believe, for a 20 gallon. Big difference.
What
type of soil do you recommend for that, and can it take full sun?
What kind of soil do we recommend, and can it take full sun? I think everything on display at the moment is actually all full sun. Takes lots of sun. Takes our Arizona heat, no problem. There are things that you can use if you've got a real shady area. Say you're in this area here where there's lots of ponderosa pines. There are things you can use. Do be aware shade plants are sometimes a little bit slower growing, but there are some that you can definitely use that are faster. So just come in and shop with us, and we'll tell you what's going to work best for your area. But for most of us, when you're looking at privacy screening, you're putting the screening out in an area that doesn't already have plants to shade that area. So definitely in most cases, you're gonna be looking for.
We had a question over here too.
Yes.
What time of year do you plant these?
What
Hopefully
time of
now.
year can you plant? So let's talk about planting, which will include the soil and the time of year. We are in a mild enough climate, not so hot as Phoenix, not so cold as Montana, that we can plant year-round here, especially when it comes to shrubs and trees and vines. You can plant year-round. We don't have an off-season. So just you kind of go for it. The cooler seasons actually work best. Fall is the best time of year they could possibly plant because summer is always going to be a little hard on some plants. A little hard on you because you're trying to keep up with the watering because a new plant only has this much root and soil space to live on. So after it's established, it's going to spread its roots out into the outer soil. It's going to decrease your frequency of watering, but at first when it's new, it's really going to need your help. So if you put that in the summer, that means you really got to keep an eye on it. Make sure you're watering it probably a couple times a week. If on the other hand you put it in fall, now it's got several months to root out before getting hit by that summer heat. It's going to make your job so much easier. Really will. Yes?
If you buy something this big, say you want to cover a 20-foot area, would you plant it in, say, 10 feet then?
Yeah, I'd probably put
and
in a
then
couple
you
of
can
them.
just spread that out more than.
Yeah. Yeah, you can take the vines and kind of say, I want you to weave this way. Kind of help it out a little bit. But yeah, if you've got a 20-foot area and you want to put in vines, I'd probably, get a couple of the honeysuckle, just so that it fills in the fastest.
Yeah.
Get the 5 gallons and that can do a lot of good right there. Back to planting. We do have pretty tough soils here, and it does vary a little bit. If you're in the Thumb Butte area, it's a disintegrated granite. So you have boulders and shallow soil. Can get a little tough sometimes. In fact, I'm going to be going out on Monday to someone's house to kind of look at things and say, okay, where's going to be the best places to plant these vines? That's actually what we're putting in. We're putting in, I think, trumpet creeper. And we're going to be putting these in, and we've got to kind of go out there and say, okay, what's going to work best for that job, because they've got a lot of solid rock. It's right over here across the street, actually. Just a lot of solid rock, hardly any dirt. So that can always get a little bit tricky. The rest of us all have clay. The type and color of clay will vary a little bit from area to area, but it's pretty much clay. Very, very dense, hard to dig in. In either case, you want to definitely amend it. You've either got the sandy, disintegrated granite over there, which will not hold water too well, and it just everything passes right through it, and you have to be careful about whether the rock is going to prevent drainage. The rest of us, we're worrying about increasing our drainage, kind of softening that soil enough so that the roots can grow out, so that it can absorb water. Sometimes our clay can actually be so hard that it has a little trouble absorbing water at first. It takes the entire monsoon for some areas. So you want to be aware of where you are, what kind of soil you have. You want to dig your hole 2 to 3 times as wide as this root ball. Dig it wider. Amend it with a compost. We sell it as premium mulch. It's made specifically for amending our soils here. And what that's going to do is going to help balance out drainage and moisture retention, whether you have one problem or the other. Yes?
How much do you want to put in? Because you want to keep some of your native soil there, don't you?
Please keep your native soil.
Yeah.
I get that.
Otherwise it won't
yes.
get used to it.
Exactly. I actually have a lot of people come in, especially from the east where they're used to wonderful loam over there, and they'll say, well, this soil's so bad, should I just take it out and replace it? Actually, please don't do that, because sooner or later the roots have to grow outside of the hole that you dug. They've got to get used to it sooner or later. It's actually difficult for roots and even water to pass from one type of soil into a completely different kind of soil. It's like there's a barrier there, and the water doesn't go through well. It doesn't wick from one texture to another. and the roots follow the water, so you'll end up having this problem. We do have a hard pan about 2-3 feet deep for most of us. So the roots do need to learn to go sideways. That's very important. They need to do that anyway, but here it's even more important. Yes?
You use 100% of the mulch. Don't mix native soil.
No. You want to mix the mulch with the soil. So you're going to dig the hole 2 to 3 times as wide, and take that dirt that you dug out of it and mix it with the mulch, and then put it back into the hole. Put the root ball in, and make sure you score it, kind of rough up the root ball a little bit, and then pack that mixture in around it. Pack it down. Put all your weight on it. Get on there and stomp. You can't overdo it. Don't worry about that. You do want to have good soil contact in there.
50-50? With
the premium mulch, it's about 1/3 mulch to 2 parts soil. And they'll say that on there too. Any employee can help you remember that.
I can say that you saw the clipboard going around, how to plant. You'll have that in your inbox here shortly. It'll tell you exactly how much, how big. It'll tell you everything you need, all the parts to plant correctly. If you're planting something really large, do what I do. I just have Ella and the team come out and plant it for me. 10 gallons and below, I can tend to handle. Bigger than that, they're just heavy, so they takes a jackhammer. They have a jackhammer. It's just easier.
Both of our trucks
So
are equipped with a 70-pound jackhammer.
We'll need it in Prescott Valley.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Prescott Valley and Prescott Lakes,
Yeah.
we are typically digging in a very hard, dense clay,
other people ask that too.
which is 50% rock. So, yes, Prescott Valley, especially on the eastern side, that area is really bad. And then the Prescott Lakes area, a lot of times what you're digging in wasn't left there naturally. The contractor that built the house, he kind of removed all the topsoil, and in order to terrace the houses, because you're on a hill, so the houses are kind of stepped like this, and so he's got to dig into the hill and then fill the other side of the yard with that excavated rock, and so you end up with what is actually, I mean, our topsoil isn't fantastic, but what is left by the contractors is worse. So, to make sure, here's another common question I get with planting. Please do not plant the root ball lower than ground level. The surface of this root ball, the surface of the soil in this pot is exactly where it's supposed to be. Don't try to put it down lower. So just keep it either level, you can even go a little bit above, and that's fine. In fact, in cases where you have a real wet clay, especially in monsoon, planting it a little higher will help to increase the aeration. I have people come in and say, I had 2 trees, exactly the same. One died, the other one's thriving. What's the difference? Is one of them on a mound? The survivor's the one on the mound. So yes, you cannot hurt anything by planting it high, but you can kill something pretty quick by planting it too low, and especially during monsoon. When monsoon comes, everything that got planted low starts dying off. You'll see all kinds of issues. So that is a very important thing that I just have to say. It will say in the planting guide, plant it level with the ground, put a moat around it. Moats are better than berms if you can manage it. A berm can kind of fall in and bury the trunk. So if you do need to remove a berm, please push it out, not in. So those are just a few tips to help prevent a lot of die-off. We see it every year, really, just for that one thing. So after you're done planting, you can put in your trellis. Some of the trees will need stakes. I would definitely recommend, there's it, you had it here,
What?
a fertilizer.
Oh yeah, I'll get it for you.
We actually made a fertilizer. Ken got together with people who know soil like nothing else. He knows his stuff, and he knows the people who know their stuff.
Say it again.
And they worked for years perfecting this fertilizer. And yes, and those who use it can tell you it really is a great fertilizer. I use it at home. I love this fertilizer. This is all I use. I don't use any other brands. I just use the fertilizer. This water's all-purpose. 744. You'll notice those numbers seem a little low to you. That's because it's natural. When you see numbers like 10, 10, 10, 20, 20, 20, 10, 15, 10, things like that, those are synthetics. They're not very efficient, and they always have these really high numbers. A natural fertilizer works more efficiently, and so you'll have lower numbers. This was formulated for our soil specifically. We know what our soil is lacking. We make sure it's all in there. All-purpose, it really will do everything because of the fact that it's got all of the nutrients that you need for all your plants. So it doesn't have just a few things for this plant and a few things for that plant. It's got the whole plethora of nutrients in there, very complete meal. So you can put this on anything and everything, makes everything happy.
Even your house plants?
Even your house plants, you would take just a very little sprinkle. Sometimes it's easier with the house plants to use a liquid fertilizer, but yes, you can put it on house plants, and I've done so before. Any other questions?
Are you supposed to wait a year before fertilizing?
Are you supposed to wait before fertilizing? Depends on your fertilizer. With this one, no. Mix this, when you're mixing the soil, you can actually mix this in along with the mulch, or you can do it immediately after to sprinkle it on top. But absolutely, by all means, put it on right away when you plant. That way it has time to break down and start working on this plant. It's something that, because it's not a synthetic, it's not the super fast-acting synthetic high nitrogen fertilizer, it's not going to stress the plants or burn the plants. So it's something that the plant can take in as it needs. And it's going to need that for the flush of new growth it's going to put on next spring. So use this 4 times a year. This is all seasons fertilizer. I know many of them say you can only apply during spring, only during summer, only during winter. You know, you have all these different fertilizers for your different seasons. This one's all seasons. Put in any time. So use this 4 times a year, about every 3 months.
Okay. Another question I have is maybe I have an autumn blaze that's a really tree and color. Is that wrong?
No. Autumn blaze is always the first.
Can you repeat the question
yes.
just for those online?
Yeah. The first tree to turn every year is autumn blaze. It's right on time. I'm seeing them turn. She was wondering, is there something wrong with her autumn blaze maple? This one right here. It's turning red already. She's wondering, is that a sign that something is wrong? No, that's normal for the maples. They always are the first thing to turn, and they're right on time right now. Yes.
I've been trying to establish a hedge to use with the arbor
Arborvitae?
That you have as well. They'll stay green for a while and then slowly turn brown. Little spots on turn brown and die.
Now, when you say a while, do you mean weeks, years, months?
Oh, like most of them do not last years.
Okay.
Repeat
So
the question.
The question is the arborvitae. She keeps trying to establish a hedge with the arborvitae. But it seems to do fine for almost a year and then starts to quit on you. So generally, if it's something that's happening right away, you start looking at things like water. But if it's something that's happening a little later, usually, especially if it's within that first year, you probably want to look at something going on in the environment. Is there, say, a grub problem in the soil? Just different things that could be happening with arborvitaes. There's not so many things that can go wrong. They don't really get a lot of insects on them. They're pretty good on water after they start getting established. If they're going to have any water issues, it's always going to be right away. As long as you are watering correctly and remembering to update your method as the tree grows bigger. As it grows, its needs do change. Just like us, we're not still on a baby bottle of milk every 2 hours. We're older, our needs have changed, we eat differently. Same thing with the shrubs and the trees. You do have to update the way you water them. But typically, if you're having a problem about a year out, we want to look at something new happening in your environment, have grubs moved in, something like that. Because the arborvitaes don't have a whole lot of problems during that time period.
I can say I just lost an arborvitae at one of my rentals, and gophers ate the roots.
Yeah.
So you can get into weird stuff. That's when bring the roots in, and we can do an autopsy by looking at the roots. We can't tell by the top, but by the roots, we can tell you why it died.
Generally, how much water would you say they need? Like,
Well, it depends on the size you bud. How much water does an arborvitae need, or any tree, or any vine, any shrub? How much does it need? At first, it's going to depend on how big this root ball was. Like this one here is the same size as this. It's a 5 gallon. I'd probably be giving that about 5 gallons. I could probably do it twice a week if it was, say, June. We're going into fall, so I'd be petering off to once a week and then eventually twice a month in the winter.
it's on drip. How much?
If it's on drip, yeah. Most people are going to be running it somewhere in the vicinity of 1 to 3 hours. It just depends on how many emitters are you putting on. You can also adjust for the individual plant simply by adding or subtracting emitters. So it's hard for me to say, run your system for 1 hour. So it's actually a little bit of a math equation. How much is being emitted per hour onto the tree? What size emitters do you have? How many emitters do you have? So you take that and say, okay, I can either adjust the time in order to give it more water, or I can adjust the emitters and put on more emitters or bigger emitters or whatever, and do it that way. So that I can't say it should be running for this amount of time. It's going to vary a little bit.
But once established, it should be using very little water.
Once established, yes. You'll find that the first year is when it's going to use the most. After then you get to the second year, it'll probably be about the same amount of water, but instead of small drinks more often, you'll go less often, but with bigger drinks. But I've seen old arborvitaes, especially go down to, say, Dewey. They have a lot of old arborvitaes down there. There's neighborhoods here in Prescott that are a little bit older, and nobody takes care of those. They just kind of sit there. I would say they should get some water, even the older ones, from time to time during this time of year, during this drought period, because the rain's not going to do a good job of it. I mean, we remember those years when it was just rain, and lately no.
Figure out if it's gophers, we get big to bring up, plant up, or
If it's a gopher, if you have gophers in your area, definitely consider them. If you don't have gophers, usually you know if you have gophers in your area or not. If you don't have gophers, then you might want to put out a grub treatment. If it's dead, go ahead, pull it out, bring it in, let us look at the roots, so that we can give you a better diagnosis rather than me playing 20 questions with you right now trying to guess at it.
Even if you bought the plant from somewhere else, we'll still diagnose it, because we're hoping you'll buy your other plant that will live from us. So, yeah. Did you mention what those remaining plants are? Just maybe go down to tell us just what the other...
I do want to mention these. These right here are junipers.
Oh, you got to move the honeysuckle for the folks on camera. There you go.
Okay, these right here are junipers. There's many different types of junipers. The first thing I'm going to say to you is these are female. Because the first thing everyone ever says to me when I say juniper, they said, I'm allergic. Junipers come in 2 different genders, male and female. Only the males pollinate. The females are safe. I'm severely allergic myself, so I totally get it. These are female. They are safe to have around. So with the junipers, they grow, they're what we would call a moderate growing evergreen. Put on about a foot a year. Not bad for an evergreen. And for many, that's going to be good enough. Because you're already buying it so many feet tall, and you only need a few more to get to where you need. And it's already starting to block. So again, if you're not needing something terribly tall, they do come in different sizes. Sometimes we're able to get some pretty big ones in too. So you can get older ones from time to time. The junipers are fantastic on water. I mean, if you've seen all the native junipers growing around here, there's a reason for that. They do great here in the desert. They do wonderful. So this is a great choice. They come in different colors. They come in green, they come in blue, and everywhere in between. Some of them are fat, some are skinny, some are tall, some are short. They come in everything. They come in bushes and hedges. They come in ground covers. They come in everything. You name it. There are some juniper bushes that also get around 6 foot tall. So if you want something along those lines, Again, junipers are one of those things I quite often see when they've been in a yard for a long time. The house has changed tenants a few times. Nobody's caring for them. Nobody waters them. And they're looking fantastic. They're huge. They're gorgeous. They're green. They're healthy. And they're living off rain. See it all the time. So the junipers are a great choice. Yes?
How do I know if what's in my yard is male or female?
How do you know if what's in your yard is male or female?
You lift the branch.
So basically, it's actually very simple. In the springtime, you see the males pollinating. You'll actually see it covered in a golden yellow powder.
Yeah.
Don't touch it because it'll actually kind of poof the pollen out towards you if you touch it. If on the other hand, if it's a female, you'll see later in the season it putting out seeds. It looks like a little berry. But when you pick it up, you'll notice it's hard and woody, but it looks like a blueberry. So basically, the males have to pollinate during spring so that the females can make their little berries. Some of you have juniper hedges that you've been in the habit of, trimming every so often, and because you keep doing that, you keep taking off the part of the branch that is trying to form a seed. So you may never see a seed, and so you're thinking, oh, why don't I ever see it? That's why. It's because you've trimmed them off just as they were forming. So if you're in the habit of doing that a lot, you'll see that. Any other questions? Yes.
Is there something called a smoke bush or a tree?
Yes.
Looks like cotton candy to me.
So she was asking, is there such a thing as a smoke bush or a tree? They're actually the same thing. It'll start off looking bushy. Eventually, the trunks will get thick enough that it starts looking like a small multi-trunk tree. So smoke bush or smoke tree are deciduous, but great on water. So you'll see them in the xeriscapes.
Are they good for hedges?
Are they good for hedges, sir? All right, so I know we're starting to get to the end of our time here, but we are still available to answer any questions that you have. And what is the tall tree? Oh, that's the deodar cedar. If you're looking for a big, fast-growing tree, puts on a couple feet a year, and eventually get something like 30, 40 feet, 40, 50 feet, 40 to 50 feet, sorry.
Stay light like that, or does it get
It'll get dense enough to be privacy screening, yeah. I mean, it'll have a light look, but it will screen, yes. So
I
I'm gonna go
can
ahead.
say too, if you need help, iPads, digital technology is awesome because you can zoom in, you can companion plant, or, and that's free when you bring it in, just what we do all day long, or Ella, or we've got teams that will go out on site and give you consults. That is not free. That costs a few bucks, but it's well worth it if you need to screen quickly. You don't want to make a mistake. It's just one mistake and you got the $200 it's going to cost you for the consult covered. But at least you know you got a professional, you're doing it correctly. So those services, and then also we've got two teams that do nothing but install plants for you. So we don't really do landscaping. We're not going to sling rock. We're not going to lay out irrigation trenches. But we do planting all the time. We like to plant, and we plant it like you would plant it at my house. It's no shortcuts. Everything is included, from the stakes all the way down the mulch, the jackhammers, and you got professionals like Ella out there in the field, not just hired guns. We're talking people that know plants. They're coming out to plant for you. So those are available to anyone. Okay, with that, we are well past an hour. I don't want to abuse your time, but Ella and I will both hang out here and answer questions. Let's give a round of applause to Ella.